Today, we're going to be talking about overgassing in the AR15 and some things that you can do to solve it, what are some of the different options, and also if you happen to have a rifle that is undergassed, these same principles would apply, just use them in reverse. I'm also going to add in some timestamps, so if you kind of are TLDR, too long didn't read, just want to get some quick answers, I'm going to go ahead and add those in the description for you as well. The AR15 is what's known as a gas-operated system. What that means is that some of the energy from the gunshot goes back through a very small tube and goes back into the receiver of the firearm. And to kind of simplify it a bit, the pressurized gas, goes to the back of the gun and goes into the bolt carrier group, where it causes the bolt carrier group to move backwards, in such a manner. And that cycles the action and causes the gun to work and loads the next round for you. So an overgassed gun would have too much of that explosive gas pressure coming back into that bolt carrier group, resulting in the cycling of the action being too strong. So that cycling too hard, too fast, or too strong like that can result in numerous types of malfunctions, harsher recoil, you might get double feeds, stuff like that. You may also notice that as you're firing, ejected cases will tend to go forward instead of a little bit towards the back. So the case would eject out of the gun after it's fired and kind of go off more forward. So that's what we got there. Reasons that this might happen: maybe you put a suppressor on. So this would be a sound suppressor. Think of it, this is an oversimplification, but for a sound suppressor, most suppressors are going to add very significant amounts of back pressure. This is going to increase the force that goes in your bolt carrier group. If you have a shorter gas system, sometimes a short barreled rifle or a pistol build, you would tend to get these excessive gas pressures. Sometimes military type guns, you also see that in AKs. But very often, like the military would set up their guns to be somewhat overgassed. And the reason for that is so that if, like this AR is it's kind of dirty, it gets a lot of rough use. So being a little bit overgassed might help cycle it, even if the bolt carrier group is dirty. So that's a little bit about why you might get an overgassed gun, and let's just talk about some different methods to solve that. There's three main ways to solve the overgassing problem in an AR-15. And so the first way is probably the most common, the one most people are familiar with, and that's going to be an adjustable gas block. So this would go around the barrel, goes up here, the same function as a standard gas block, except that an adjustable gas block would feature some sort of gas screw. Some of them will have a lever on them, etc. So this is an adjustable gas block that I used to run on this SBR with the suppressor and without. And the biggest problem that you run into with the adjustable gas blocks is these gases are under extremely high heat and pressure. A military M855 5.56 round, so the standard round that would be shot through most AR-15s, is coming up close to 60,000 psi in pressure. That's not to mention all the heat that's involved with that. It's an explosion. And with that also is carbon. And if you've ever worked on cars, things like that, you'll know that exhaust bolts, maybe turbo flange bolts or bolts around a muffler, things like that, they tend to seize up due to the heat, the carbon, and just the harsh conditions that are present with those burning exhaust gases. So this adjustable gas block here, like many, failed when I needed to adjust it after running it for a year. So there's a very tiny Allen that goes in this side. This is a keeper And then this main one on the front here would actually adjust the pressure. And you know, this one goes on my wall of shame because it failed. I would like my rifles to be reliable to the point that if I needed them to defend my life, defend my family, etc., that they'd be up to the task. And so with that, I place a high priority on reliability. Some high-end, very competitive 3-gun shooters would probably go towards the adjustable gas block despite the reliability that I mentioned, because if you're looking for just like infinitely tunable, like tune down to the exact amount of gas pressure that you need to make that gun cycle, you know, that's going to be your best bet. I don't prefer it because of all the drawbacks in terms of reliability. Before we jump into this, it's important to note that there's 2 main styles of standard AR15 or M16, you know, M4 buffers. One is going to be your carbine buffer, and that would go in the more familiar AR with the multi-position collapsible stock, and it just goes right in here. There's a spring, and it goes back and forth, and that's going to be this size buffer. Your standard weight carbine buffers will usually be blank. There will not be a stamp. It's important to also note that you can buy heavier buffers in the carbine size buffer. So carbine is going to be your lightest. It's a bit over 3 ounces. Goes up to H1, H2, and then this, if the camera will focus, is an H3, and it comes in a bit over 5 ounces. The other style of buffer is going to be a rifle buffer, or sometimes called an A2 buffer, and it would go with your longer length of pull A2 style stock. So more of the rifle style, that's going to be this buffer. These buffers come from the factory weighing about 5 ounces, and they have a total of 5 weights stacked up and then a spacer. The weights inside of the rifle length buffer, they're steel, and there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're stacked up. So what is different internally with the H1s, H2s, and H3s? Well, in the standard carbine weight buffer, they have 3, I don't know if you can see them here, 3 steel weights to add weight to this aluminum bodied buffer. In the H1 carbine buffer, I don't know if you can see that there, they have 1, 2, 3 weights, but you'll notice that 2 are the dark steel and the other is this kind of silver metal that is much heavier if you feel it, and that's tungsten, right? H2, you have still 3 weights in your carbine buffer, so you have 2 tungsten and 1 steel, and H3, as you might predict, would be 3 tungsten weights. And so your H3 buffers are going to weigh in kind of in the low to mid 5 ounce range. This is an H3. So if you're having trouble with your carbine being overgassed, one of the easiest ways to do that would be to either get in, you know, some sort of probably an H2 or an H3 buffer, and solve that. If it's highly overgassed, like way overgassed, then you can just jump to the H3. I think they're about like 30, 40 bucks depending on where you get them. But a cheaper solution is to actually just buy only the weights. So this is pure tungsten. They're one of the companies that makes them or sells them, I don't know. But I bought this for around a little bit over $20 on Amazon. And you know, these guys at that point, all you gotta do is punch out that little pin, pull this nylon, hard nylon, I think it's nylon, stopper, and then restack the weights however you'd like. You know, so then you can experiment with it and get your weights. These stoppers and this pin here, you just use like a little punch and just pound it out. But these stoppers are in there very tightly, so it can be kind of problematic to change them if you're going to be changing them frequently. So there are some options that I'll get to in a bit. Over to the rifle length. So the rifle length is going to have 5 of these steel weights. I only have 2 out. But they're going to have 5 steel weights here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all lined up. And then if you have a rifle length system and it's still dealing with some overgassing issues, you could also swap out a couple of those steel weights and put in tungsten and get even heavier. This one, from the factory with the 5 steel weights weighs around the same, maybe a little bit less, but around the same as the H3. So this is the H3 would be the heaviest of the kind of factory carbine buffers. If you need a bit more adjustability, you can go ahead and get, this one's from Odinworks, but due to changing your buffer weights becoming more popular, they're starting to get to be adjustable buffer weights. So ordinarily on the carbine, yes, you can adjust a factory carbine by just popping this out and pulling this open. Doing that at the range is pretty impractical. I've done it before, it's not fun. So an easier way would be this Odinworks example of an adjustable buffer. It does have a set screw here, and it has a large Allen screw right here, well, rather a plug. So plug unscrews, and then you just restack your weights. When you buy the Odinworks, it'll come with a mix of very light aluminum weights, the standard steel weights, and then the extra heavy tungsten weights. So it'll give you a lot of room to play with. The other thing that's really interesting is you can order the Odinworks buffer, carbine style buffer, in different weight ranges to give you more room to play with. This is their heaviest AR15 style buffer, and it's actually intended for PCCs. So its adjustment range is from about 5 ounces up to somewhere around 8 ounces, if I'm not mistaken. And normally, weirdly, you'll see heavier buffers in 9mm PCC, like the AR15 style 9mm guns, than you will in actual, 5.56 or 223 rifles. So I went with this one because with this suppressor in particular, the gas system, and etc., I was very, very overgassed. So I went with this 9mm buffer, and this is actually what I run in this carbine. And it's a 10.5, I should say, 10.5 inch barrel SBR. So it's a 2-stamp gun, and with the 9mm buffer weight, adjustable 9mm buffer weight from Odinworks, I was able to tune it such that it would run 100% reliability with anything from, oh boy, like your really like lower powered, like low quality, like Wolf and Tula ammo, all the way up to military ammo, suppressed or unsuppressed, with no adjustments to the carbine. So what that means is I can take the suppressor off, take the can off, run a mag of Wolf, put the suppressor on, run a mag of military XM193 or other 5.56, your higher pressure ammo like that, with making 0 changes to the rifle setup. There's no gas blocks to fail that did fail. And although the Odinworks does have a plug and a set screw, those are not exposed to the heat and the gases because they're not actually part of the gas system, so they don't really get that hot. So after I had gotten the rifle set up the way I wanted, got all my weights perfect to where it would run any ammo whatsoever, with the can, without the can, any ammo, always lock back, etc. I went ahead and just Loctited it. So now I have no moving parts that need adjustment to switch between any type of ammo that I want with this 10.5 inch SBR. Suppressed, unsuppressed, everything. Another way that you can adjust the weight, or the mass, I should say, on your AR-15's bolt carrier group and kind of reciprocating assembly is to switch to a full auto bolt carrier. On the left, this is the full auto bolt carrier. On the right, this is the semi-auto AR-15 bolt carrier. So the reason that the AR-15, the semi-auto version, is lighter is that it has some material removed from here that's present on the full auto version. No, using a full auto bolt carrier group will not make your rifle full auto. So there's no NFA laws or anything like that that apply It just simply would make it cycle a little bit slower. So overall, I would say the full auto is a benefit, although I don't use them on all my rifles. Just switching to a full auto bolt carrier group, if I had a semi-auto and I had a complete rifle that was together, wouldn't necessarily be my first choice, because you could pay $100 for a bolt carrier group and you're only adding, you know, a little bit of steel. So as far as the weight that you're adding, you're not adding that much weight for $100. So going with some of these pure tungsten weights for $20 for 3, it's quite a bit better value. The other way that we'll see people solve an overgassed gun is to change the buffer spring. This is one from Springco. It's pretty rad. You go on their website, sprinco.com, Springco, and you can get different tensions of springs. So this one's their blue. It's a bit higher than factory. This could be a pretty reliable solution. I ultimately didn't go with it because I felt like this spring was a little bit too heavy, and it made my felt recoil, like my impression of the felt recoil, a little bit more. Right now, my top solution for an overgassed AR15 is going to be hands down go to a heavier buffer. So if you're moderately overgassed or like lightly overgassed, you could probably get by with just getting an H2 or an H3. So it'll be stamped with an H2 or an H3 depending on what weight. Or if you want the most affordable option, it's going to be go get a set of 3 AR15 buffer weights. These are some from Pure Tungsten, a little bit over $20. You can't beat that. So I hope you found this video helpful and informative. Yeah, you know, with the correct weight buffers, I've found the AR15 suppressed and unsuppressed to be very, very reliable and very robust system. You know, I've kind of been there, done that with adjustable gas blocks. I've tried a little bit in the world of heavier springs, and right now, this is going to the heavier buffers, or the Odinworks adjustable buffer is the best solution that I found.